Hey everybody, welcome to our next live stream series interview. Today we've got the great Marcus Vann, great bassist and all-around general musician, and he should be joining us momentarily, so we're just waiting a couple seconds here to get things set up, and hopefully we'll get him here without too much difficulty. So it should be just a second, so bear with me. And as I like to preface all these things with, if you have any questions for myself or Marcus, feel free to jump in and send a comment. Sometimes the screen here's a little weird, so I'm going to be monitoring on another screen, so hopefully we won't see the question after the fact. But he should be joining us in just a second, so sit tight. And as I said, if you know Marcus already or not, feel free to ask him questions because he's got a lot of great information. So it should be just a minute here. We tried this several times. We're able to do it, but it's always kind of weird. Hi, Angela. Thanks for watching. We should be getting things rolling in just a minute. Marcus is he's down in California. And, yeah, when we tried this, we had a little bit of difficulty connecting. But we got it to work several times, so hopefully we can get this to go again without too much trouble. Hope everybody's doing well out there. And 1 second here. And we hope everyone survived Black Friday without too much difficulty. Hang on 1 second, guys. There we go. 1 second. Here he is. Says he's joining. Takes a second. Almost there. Almost there. Hey, Cheryl. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I'm excited to see what he's going to say, too. We did a little bit of catching up prior to this. So
see if we get this.
Hey.
Okay, it's working now, man.
All right, Marcus, welcome.
Oh, hey, I'm glad to be here with you, man. Seriously, this is so cool.
Everyone
to just sit down.
Patiently waiting. So everything all set?
Yeah.
Good to go?
I think I'm good to go. You know,
all right. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, welcome. For those that don't know Marcus, I put a little bit about his information at the beginning of this post, but he's a wonderful bass player and musician. He's gigged all over the place. I actually grew up playing a lot of music with Marcus back in the day. In the information, it doesn't mention where he went to school and all that kind of stuff, but I do know that you are a PLU alum, correct?
Ish.
Yeah,
ish.
All right. Well,
yeah.
what I'm going to do is kind of start with how did you get your start in music? Now, I know your father was a bass player, so maybe you can talk about him for a little bit, but what piqued your interest and kind of grabbed you and got you into playing music?
Honestly, wow. I kind of just fell into it when all is said and done. You know what I mean? My dad being a musician certainly was a huge thing because there was music always around. And the great thing is I really don't have any bias about music because we were listening to James Brown and Motown, and there was also Rod Stewart. There was Elton John going on. You know what I mean? And there was just a bunch of stuff coming in all at the same time. So I kind of appreciate it all. And to this day, I still appreciate it all. And that's why it's good to learn stuff that you don't know. And I don't have any bias about it. So I'm coming at it from just feed me more, feed me, see more, that sort of thing. You know, it's just, just trying to keep the mind open and stuff like that, So that's what that was. And my dad was a tuba player kind of first, and that was his thing coming up. Growing up in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, and my mom as well, growing up in Birmingham, Alabama. And they met at a place called Miles College, which is a small predominantly black college down there. My dad being a tuba player, my mom being a majorette. So, but just, at that time, late 60s, Motown is kicking and everything like that. And we got the R&B stuff coming from Sly and all those guys coming right down the road, and all that good stuff. So there was always those influences going on. But my dad being a tuba player also, he had a huge appreciation for Sousa March and band material, him being a band director. So I was also exposed to that at a very young age. So I started playing tuba and stuff like that when I was about 3 or 4 or so, like that, just kind of huffing around and stuff and trying to get parts on the Sousa marches and whatnot like that. And that stuff is hard.
3 or 4 years old, you started playing tuba?
Yeah, I kind of could get a sound. So yeah, I started, huffing and puffing on that thing, and running out of air and stuff like that. But stuff like that. And so there was plenty of music people around that we knew and stuff like that. My dad knew all the band directors in the area and stuff like that. And my godfather, Charles Williams.
Yes.
Yes, absolute wonderful human being. They were actually in the Air Force band together back in the day. So, and they played along. My dad was a bass player, Charles being a saxophone player. The drummer was David Garibaldi, who is the drummer for Tower Power, the all-world drummer, killing it out there. So those three go back for a long time and stuff. So in the intervening years when I've seen Dave and stuff, I always say hello, and he says, "How's your mom?" and stuff like that. And we actually got to play together on the recording, but I'll talk about that later. So
right on.
Yeah, so that was kind of the start of that stuff. So,
well, Charles Williams, I never knew your father. I'm just in passing, and he always was lovely. And same thing with your mother. I did not know about the majorette stuff. She's always been very sweet and soft-spoken and kind. But I also got the sense she's not one that you want to trifle with either. And Charles Williams, what really impresses me about Charles is a great musician, wonderful player, improviser, instructor. And I think what he was able to do, out at Keithley Middle School for years and years and years to develop that program, a massive program with a lot of, let's face it, students that don't have as much as everybody else. That speaks volumes to his leadership and his skills as an educator,
Absolutely. And he's also such a deep lover of jazz like yourself, So like to this day, I still try to share stuff with him, on YouTube and whatnot, and send him a link. And, the other day I sent him a live Sonny Rollins saxophone Colossus live clip there. So, it is great with Niels Peterson playing bass, man. Just, my gosh. But that one, St. Thomas and all that other stuff on it. Just such a master of the instrument. But that's what Charles loves, and so we can still share that with each other. He's living the retired life now, but Charles doesn't really retire. He just kind of...
He's still teaching. I think he's up at Seattle Night School, I think.
Yes, he is. And then this summer during the pandemic, they're playing in the neighborhood, every night and just, getting that thing on. So, that love never dies, and that's why I appreciate music educators such as him so much. That's huge. And as yourself, trying to keep this thing going. There's room for it all, but just the people that have the love and the passion to push this thing on, I love that. So,
well, you had some very, very strong influences, not only from just the playing side, but also from the educational side. So starting at 3 at 4 at tuba, I've never heard that in my life. That's crazy. That's good. So then next logical thing is were you in Washington at that time? Like when?
Yes.
Okay. So then where did you end up going to usually people start in 5th grade bands. So where did you go? How did that begin with you?
Okay. So where I grew up in Tacoma, or should I say Spanaway, which is a little bit south of Tacoma. And actually band started in 6th grade in the Bethel School District. So I had Lori Gard. I don't know if you remember Roger Gard, who was a professor at Pacific Lutheran. Yes, that was her husband, another great musician. And so Lori kind of started me out on that type of stuff, and I was already coming from home with sort of a foundation of that stuff going on. So it was really great. I was playing baritone horn, actually, at first. And then From there, then I went to Cedar Crest Junior High, and my band director was a fellow bandmate of my dad who was in a group with Charles Williams called Abraxas.
Okay.
His name was not Phil Donahue, Ed Donahue. Ed Donahue, who I believe is teaching out in the Port Townsend School District, is where he was at. He's a great jazz trumpet player out of Central. If you ask all the cats, they remember Ed. You know what I mean? You're talking Kelly Coons, Paul Harshman, all those guys. They know Ed.
Yeah.
So he's a bad dude. So then I went on to Spanaway Lake High School. I had Doug Burt, Lynn Graciano for band there, just going through the literature and stuff like that. And from there, when I started to meet you cats and stuff like that, I was at Pacific Lutheran at that point. And I had a tuba scholarship to play wind ensemble with Ray Dale Bradley conducting, who was an incredible conductor. He's not with us anymore, but his influence is huge.
Happened. I don't know if people know the backstory of PLU, but he was actually, shall we say, assassinated on campus. I mean...
Well, that was Dr. Holloway. Holloway. Yes. But no.
I thought something similar. I thought he...
Well, no, Ray Dale had issues. He was diabetic. So he had some issues, and that kind of was what happened there. But Dr. Holloway was also a major influence on a lot of my friends. And speaking of educators, a lot of great educators came out of there. One being my wife, Doris Doyen, who's teaching down here at Norwalk High School, doing her doctorate at UCLA, getting stuff done.
Paul Bain went there too at the same time, roughly.
Paul Bain was there. Michael Woods, he's out at the South Kitsap, I believe. Kirsten McCarl, who's a fantastic vocal director. The list goes on and on.
He also was running a really slick program. I'm kicking myself for not remembering his last name right now.
Who are you talking about? Who are you thinking?
Neil.
Oh, Neil Anderson, Himmelsbach. Yeah. That's my boy.
Yeah.
That's my boy. Go, Neil. Mwah. He's a composition and theory professor at TCU, Texas Christian University now, doing his thing. And he's been just so generous just in life. He's one of my closest, dearest friends. And, we share music back and forth. But, he's also teaching me a lot of things that I didn't know when it comes to music theory and all these other things, because he's one of those people that can just hear the whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And certainly, educators, I've been around a lot of them. And, luckily I've known the good ones that have the passion to stay in it. Because, yourself, my goodness, how long have you been at the School of the Arts there?
Oh, man, this is my 20th year. It's going to resume again in January, but this will be my 20th year teaching there, the jazz program there. And then I did Pierce College for about 10 years, and I've been doing private lessons since about 1997. So it's been a good time. Yeah.
Man, you're working. One of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life, man. Seriously. Man. Much love.
Well,
much love.
About you, not talking about me.
Oh, also, no, come on now.
We can do that later. But I first met you, it was PLU, and when I first played music with you, I thought you were younger than me. Like you still have that baby face and super young. The lucky guy. So, but we were playing. It was like you and Cliff Cologne and I think Gus Burns. And, Peter and later along, Mason Hargrove later on, and but so. When you went to PLU, who were some of the other contemporary musicians that you were playing with in jazz band? And at the same time, was Roger Guard still there, or was that after?
Okay, Roger was there. I wasn't in the top band my freshman year. I was in the second band when Roger was there. Then he took a sabbatical, and Paul Harshman came on in. Right. And we had Paul Bain there. Cliff came in around the third year I was there, and I wasn't in jazz band. I'm trying to third or fourth year there. But at one point, Don Imbel came in, if you remember Don, killer trombone player. Yeah. And just him.
Europe teaching, I think.
Oh, that makes total sense. What a man. And, but him being there was huge. And that really changed all of our focus because we were playing a little bit different literature from just straight up big band stuff, and that's nothing on Roger, because Roger was awesome. You know what I mean? But it was a little bit more of a contemporary bend on what we were doing. So there's older big band stuff, and then there's like the Maynard Ferguson stuff from the 70s, starting to kind of push that thing. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
Stuff like that. So yeah, having him there was just huge, and Cliff was around and stuff like that. And actually, it's funny because I didn't really start playing with you guys for a while, because I was thinking I don't think I'm good enough to hang with these cats yet. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh man. And so the thing was, I was working at KPLU from the time I was a freshman. So I would just
Which
sit
is now,
there.
we gotta, for people that don't know.
Well, that's a whole nother issue. Oh man, that's
moving on.
Yes, exactly. But no, I used to just have overnights to kind of watch the satellite, watch the board, and I take some readings for a couple minutes and do a radio ID, and then I had like 58 minutes to just listen, man. And that's where I discovered a lot of cats and a lot of stuff that I had no idea. I mean, when you're young, you think you got these things figured out, and the older you get, you're just going, I didn't know Jack, you
Yep.
know. And so I discovered, John Patitucci. I discovered Paul Chambers, Niels Peterson, Charles Mingus. And those are just the bass players. I was open to so many different things, Sonny Rollins, Sonny Stitt, Illinois Jacquette. Just, all the great stuff Wynton did as a young man, and the stuff that Branford was doing with him, and then Branford's contemporary stuff at the time, all the Wayne Shorter, the Miles Davis Quintet, both of the great ones, and then going into the 70s stuff. It was all sitting there, and a lot of it, I tell you honestly, they wouldn't play because they figured it was a little too intense for public radio. And so there's just a wall of CDs that were just burned, basically, and records. There was like 20,000 records here, and there's like a wall of 10,000 CDs to just choose from and listen. So in that way, my PLU experience as a whole was great. And all this time I was still playing in wind ensemble. But when you're around a lot of the good, right people, it helps a lot. You know what I mean? And that's what that did, certainly. So, especially at Pierce as well. So,
on a side note, Dick Stein just retired. I don't know if you saw that. Just the last few days, he put a letter out, and so he can't saying he's retiring. So I'm assuming he was around when you were there.
I think he was, yeah.
Said, was Dale Bundrant there as a DJ?
Yes,
back in the
Dale Bundrant. Yes, he was there. Say again?
Kat? You remember Kat? She was a DJ there for a while.
With that deep voice, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I remember Kat. Certainly, yes. She was there. I used to be a production assistant for a lady named Juliet Zentillis, who did an all blues show. And so I wasn't just listening to jazz. I started listening to the blues and stuff like that, and and they're all connected. They're all cousins. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, but that was huge.
I remember you were saying that you were kind of hesitant to play with us, but I remember the first time we did a session with you, I think it was at my house here, and everyone was like, who was that guy? Like, call him again,
Oh, my goodness. Well, that was nerves all the heck, you know what I mean? Because I'd spent so much time just at home, just practicing by myself, and these overnights over at Pacific Lutheran, just take my bass in there and play. So when it came to playing with other people, that was kind of nerve-wracking, you know what I mean? And you kind of get, at that point, I was kind of getting all up in my head and stuff like that, and but I tell you, man, I got to be honest, those were some of the best times when we were young. We're playing for a tip jar full of $7 at Shaka Bra Java or something like that, back in the day, man.
I was thinking about the clubs. Like, we would do a thing. It was like, I think Cliff and I were playing like 7 hours a day. We would do Ravens Road Coffee House, and then we would do, that'd be like for 3 hours, and then we go do like Grounds for Coffee, and then we do like
Grounds
all in one day. Like, we were playing 7 hours a day.
Those are the fantastic times, man. We weren't making any money, and we didn't care. you
Yeah.
know, and it was just about the music at that point, you know, and we had fun. And I remember you were always writing, you're always working on something, and people listen to Kareem when he's talking about stuff. He used to call me up, and the first thing he would say, you probably don't remember this, he would call me up and he'd say, "Hey man, what you working on?" That's how he greeted me on the phone, which is a great way to greet people, because you know you got to keep each other accountable. Having people on your back and on your side in this thing is a great way to grow. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
totally.
Yeah.
It's hard to get away with that stuff now. It's a different era, but you know, I do it where I can, and with where I know people, they can like, you know, they're not going to be like, you know. So
Yeah, yeah. It's you know it's a little bit different now. So
so how did you start? When did you start playing bass? Because you're at PL, you're doing tuba. When did the bass come into the picture here?
well, I started bass probably when I was about 14. Um, I was in jazz band at school. I was a guitar player at Cedar Crest at first, and then this new kid was coming in, and he was a guitar player, and they're like, "Well, we want Ed to play guitar," and I'm like, "Well, hey, I'll play bass. Why not?" You know, I got one at home, my dad's, so
Yeah.
I just started playing around on it, you know, and that's kind of how that started. Now, I didn't really start practicing and taking it seriously till I was probably about 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And then I was, you know, doing those overnights, and I would just practice, and then, you know, and I'm just doing stuff. And then I'm listening to somebody melodic like Patitucci or Scott LaFaro, and I'm going, wait, I can do this.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I don't need to just sit back and just, you know, keep myself in this box. These cats are being melodic as all get out.
Yeah.
So let me try to do that. You know what I mean? So that's when that started, you know. So, and then I used to, like you guys, I was just practice all day, man. Just the bass was constantly in my hands. And my mom is a heavy sleeper. So she's on the other side of the house. She's knocked out. And I'm practicing, you know, all day into like 1 or 2 in the morning. The neighbor down the road, she says, "Yeah, I can hear him practicing, but I like it," you know, when she's way up at, you know, in the morning and stuff like that. But, yeah, that was how that started, you know. And then I just
Right.
kind of fell into it, man. You know, started gigging with you guys and stuff, and it was like, this is fun. This is what I do. This is what
Yeah.
I do. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
so then, because I know we started gigging while you were still at PLU, and your
Mhm.
degree from PLU, was it education or performance, or what was the story there?
Well, the idea was music education,
Yeah.
but I can't. This stuff that they require you to go through school called money, money.
Yeah.
I ran out of that. So um, out of that, you know, so I was just kind of playing there and then just kind of doing gigs with you guys. And then life kind of took over. So, and I, you know, I take a class or two at Pierce, but that's, I still just have a high school diploma.
Yeah.
So,
Fair enough.
yeah,
Oh,
but
you have a degree in life, and you've done so much
there we
uh,
go.
music and things that other people haven't done. I mean, that's that speaks volumes. I mean, there's the paper that you get from school, and then there's actual life experience that like if someone's going to hire you for a gig, if you have a degree, that's great. But if you can't play,
Right,
who cares? Who cares? But
right.
anyways, so you mentioned Pierce College. Did you play at Pierce College with Groove for Thought at all when they were there? I can't remember.
Kind of the first iteration of it. I kind of sang a little bit with it, you know, but I don't consider myself a strongest singer. And, you know, Kelly is type A. Boom, boom, boom. But I did sing in the jazz choir there that he was directing, and Tom Mobley was directing and stuff. That was great. And then, you know, in later years, I started backing them up and stuff like that.
Right.
And kind of working that way, you know. And we had our Pierce College Big Band. I still have the concert from 2003. I need to get that to you so you can hear some
Okay.
of that stuff. Because remember, Mason used to record everything that we did, right?
He's
So
watching. I'm sure he can probably chime in. I'm sure he's got it. So
I'm
yeah.
sure he does. He had that mini disc player everywhere, man. But yeah, no, that's kind of how that started, you know. And I was still playing a little bit of tuba, you know, in those years, but I just realized I wasn't in love with it. And there's people that were better at it, you know, like Ivan Giddings and Chris Tiedemann,
Right.
who went on,
Right.
who's in the President's Own right now, you know, and he's one of the best tuba players in the world. So
Yeah.
let me step aside and give it to this
Well,
cat, you know. somebody who really loves it. You know what I mean? So, but I really fell in love with the bass. I'm still in love with the bass. We have a back and forth relationship. You know, it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's domestic violence with the bass, but you know. But I'm just slapping that dog, baby. Do, 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 do. You know.
So okay, so Pierce College, that would have been like that would have been late '90s, early 2000s.
Late '90s. Yep.
Okay.
Certainly.
So, and at that time, I remember I was talking to Tom Merritt on one of these other interviews that we did, and I was talking about the Latin scene. And I remember you were very much plugged in with a band called Latin Expression. You gig with them a lot.
Absolutely.
Now, when did that start happening? How did that even come about?
Man, you know what? I tell you the truth, I'm not sure. I just started playing a lot in town and different things, and people would try me different places and stuff. And Dean Schmidt, bass player that was up there in Seattle, gave me a call one day, you know, because I had covered for him on a few other things. And he said, man, you know, you're playing pretty good. He's like, it's time for you to kind of step up here, man. So, and the thing is, I was a really good reader, you know, from doing all the classical literature with tuba and stuff like that. So he's like,
Right.
yeah, let me send you on this thing. So he sent me to a rehearsal with Latin Expression. And, you know, just out of nervousness, I was so focused and plugged in that I nailed the rehearsal, you know what I mean? And, you know, from there, that just kind of took off there. So I started gigging with them. And then from there, you know, once again, you realize, oh, I didn't know anything. So then it becomes a thing where I tend to go through phases. So I dove headlong into a lot of Latin music when it came to that, and bass players and learning who all these cats were, John Benitez, Kashiwa, and stuff like that. And a lot of cats can cross over, you know, as well as playing jazz and stuff like that. So, but that's how that started. And, you know, played with them a little bit with another band called Bochinche that was up there in Seattle. So, and that's how that part started. And that was really interesting because these are people that aren't coming from a necessarily schooled bend of learning music, but it is all in the heart. It's in the gut, man, and you can feel it. And when you mess something up because you're playing like somebody who's from the United States, and you're with somebody who's from Puerto Rico or Panama or even Mexico, or a piano player, Julio was from Mexico. You know, you mess something up, they look at you and you just go, what? You know, I felt it this way. And they're like, no, you're completely wrong. So my advice is for growing as a musician is to hang around people better than you in whatever genre that you're after, and get your butt kicked for a little while and then go back and shed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I've heard
there's no shame in mistakes.
Yeah, there's that story about I think it was Weather Report, and they were down in South America doing some sort of festival, and I think, if I remember the story correctly, like Jocko was doing it one way, and another guy was like, not only is it wrong, but he was like, you're a terrible person, and they were like coming to fisticuffs over how it was supposed to be.
Wow.
And Jocko wasn't a slouch. He grew up in Miami and knew all the, you know, a lot of the stuff, but it's a little subtle thing where, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
well, so
you know.
Who else was on those gigs? I know Julio was playing piano and he's still around doing stuff, but was Tom in the band at that time or playing with you guys?
Oh, boy. Scott Brown played trombone. Scott Brown from Roosevelt High School, director up there. Bob was another trombone player. I'm trying to remember everybody's name. Dennis Haldane was a trumpet player. Ted Bowden, trumpet player. Things like that. Junior Medina, percussion. Rafael Quinones was playing percussion. You know, these are a little bit different worlds between those and jazz. You know what I mean? But some of the guys crossed over, you know, and that's kind of how I started playing with Darren Montamity and started playing smooth jazz and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And, you know, everything is just kind of crossed over, and it just came into this thing because, you know, and it heard about me from Dean, and then I did okay there. And then Doug Barnett gives me a call, and Douglas Barnett is a monster. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why is this calling me? And so then he started sending me on gigs and stuff like that. And that was just a blessing because that was just growth. And I met a lot of new people and stuff like that. Got my butt kicked on some gigs too, you know, and just a little reminder that you're not Douglas. You're not Douglas.
Well, he was Paul Allen's bassist. Like he did all those.
Oh, yeah.
He was like the guy that did all those shows with Paul and did all those tours. So
Yes.
did you ever get a chance to sub for him with Paul's gigs?
I didn't. But subbing for him, he was supposed to do Legends in Concert when it came up from Las Vegas at the Muckleshoot. And I was supposed to.
Hang on, I know what you're talking about, but some people watching don't know what you're talking about. So explain the Legends in Concert. I wanted to talk about that anyway. So can you talk about that for a minute?
Okay. Well, Legends in Concert is a Las Vegas style production show wherein people who are singers, they actually simulate the voice and the likeness of different music stars throughout the decades and stuff.
They're awesome. Like, they're super talented. They're like
absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Tom Jones, Elvis, of course, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, you know, the whole thing. The Supremes acts, Motown acts,
Yoko Ono.
All this stuff. You know what? I didn't do a Yoko Ono thing. I was hoping to, just kind of. But
sorry.
No, it's cool. But that's what that show is from Las Vegas, and they actually came up on the road because they did different road shows, and runs in different cities, and Douglas was supposed to do a cover of that for a couple of weeks, and he couldn't because he was actually going out with Paul Allen. So they called me, said, well, you can cover this for 2 weeks. I said, sure, you know, because no job too small, you know, at that point. And, you know, I needed macaroni and cheese. So that's what I did. So covered it for 2 weeks, but they liked me so much and it was so consistent. They're like, yeah, we want you to stay here, you know. And Douglas, of course, had no problem with that because he's busy doing a million commercial jingles and arranging for everybody. So he was cool. And Douglas was always a real joy and treasure to me. So he was huge in getting me involved with them.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, just doing that for a couple years. Love to Megan Belk and her husband, Jim Belk, who's no longer with us. Jim calls me one day, he says, well, they're having some auditions down here in Las Vegas for the main show. We want you to go ahead and give it a shot. So I said, okay, well, might as well, you know, because at that time I was kind of floating still again, just wondering what's going to happen next, you know. So I had to buy a ticket last minute on Southwest. I had $268 in my account. The ticket cost me $238.
Wow.
So I flew down and I was like, well, if this doesn't work out, then, you know.
Yeah.
And so I flew down, I auditioned, you know, did my thing. Then I flew back home, you know, and I'm just kind of waiting. I auditioned on a Tuesday and Megan called me on Thursday and said, they want you to come down. They want you to come down. So I you know, I beat out 12 other guys for this position. Yeah. And she called me on Thursday. I had a duplex and an apartment full of stuff. My mom and a friend of mine packed it up for me, and I was gone on Tuesday with just 2 duffel bags and 2 basses. Yeah. And flew down to Vegas, and that's how my Vegas life kind of started.
Yeah, and you were there for a long, long time. How many years were you in Las Vegas playing?
Geez, I was there from 2004 till 2012. I started having some health issues, which is why I came to California.
Yeah.
But on a side note, I mean, I was going back and forth and stuff like that. And then now, I mean, since 2016, I was really going back and forth and everything, playing basically every weekend and stuff like that. But backing up back to the Vegas thing, yeah, no, I was with Legends for 4.5 years doing that show, which was cool.
Perspective from I think you were telling me there's like multiple shows a day, like 6 days a week, right? I mean, the workload is pretty strenuous, right?
At that time, it was definitely. I don't know what they do now, but for us, it was 2 shows a night, 6 days a week. So my only day off was Sunday. And you know, and the thing about with musicians is, if you want to make them complain, just give them a gig. You know, just we're working more than any other show in town. This sucks, rocks, blah blah blah. Well, the reality of it was I worked 18 hours a week.
Yeah.
You know. There's some people that don't work 18 hours a week, you know, right, that don't have a place to live, don't have food and this other stuff. So one of the greatest quotes I heard was, "There's no attitude problem that can't be cured by a couple of months of unemployment." You know,
Yeah,
so
totally true. Totally true.
hey, man, you got to realize what you have, and I mean, if you don't like where you're at, start making some moves, man. Get yourself set up to go ahead and go out another door. So, and leaving that gig, they wanted to bring in another band, so that decision was kind of made for us.
Yeah.
But from there, I did a little bit of music direction for them on the road, doing Foxwoods Casino out in Connecticut and a few tours and stuff like that. I was a musical director on and stuff like that. But that was a great experience because I learned to play so many different styles. Despite other issues with the gig and stuff like that, I would have never learned to really appreciate country as much as I do, or rock as much as I do, all this stuff. Because, if I got to play Shania Twain and I got to turn around and play Michael Jackson right behind that, and then, you know what I mean? So you kind of got to put yourself in a different headspace and nail those grooves and about the air and the space between the notes and the note length and all that stuff. I paid attention to that because I cared. You know what I mean? And the thing is, even if somebody's listening, they might not be able to hear everything I'm doing or whatever, but it's the little things, man. Somebody's going to go, "Oh, this cat cares," or "He's listening," or "He knows the nuances," because there's a bass player sitting out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So these things, just little things like that. And I used to iron my shirts and my pants before every night, before the start of every gig. And it's black. I'm in a pit. It's dark. They can only see me chest above. And somebody said, "Man, why do you even care?" And I said, "Well, because I know.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure to present myself the best I can after these people, you know what I mean?" So that's what that was about. So, yeah. And then from there, man, after we left that gig, I started freelancing around Vegas. And I played a lot with a lot of different things. A guy in particular named Lon Bronson, who runs a band down there, All-Star Band, great band leader, great dude, funny guy, So ended up playing a lot of things with him and just kind of freelancing and just doing everything. And a lot of time I spent with a group called Spectrum, run by a guy named Cushney Roberts and a great friend of mine who's not with us anymore, Tex Richardson. We would do a Motown tribute show, these four guys, but we do it with symphonies across the nation and in Canada as part of their pop series. So from that, I got to travel all these different places around the country and meet all these great classical players and just have fun playing these great shows. And Motown is one of my jams, man. I just love it. And trying to nail those James Jamerson bass lines, you know what I mean? And just, it was such a great time. It was such a great time. And just doing all that stuff and just getting this whole palette together. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was laughing because Sam Doyne's watching and he says Marcus Vann is my spirit animal, which I thought was pretty hilarious. But anyway.
Sam. Yeah, that's because I'm married to his sister.
Yeah, I know. So I recall, I remember Cliff was doing a couple of gigs, like New Year's shows over in, I think it was like China. Did you ever do any of those as well? Like it was him and Mark Ivester and some other folks went over there. Were you on those as well?
I wasn't on those, no. No, most of the work I did was, stuff there in Vegas. You know what I mean? Is when it came to New Year's. But some years I didn't have anything to do. Some years with Legends, it's like, well, you got to be there at Legends. Got to be in your show. So the thing with shows is they're great, but sometimes they can be golden handcuffs. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you kind of got to go through some hoops to get somebody to sub for you, but you got to try to keep your mind sane. You know what I mean? So you got to take some time off when you can. But there's nothing like having a steady paycheck. Some health care and a 401k and stuff like that. So.
Well, so when you were doing the Legend show with in Vegas, and you said afterwards you were doing some freelancing, so you were kind of getting around and doing the scene. What's the jazz scene like down there? Is it fairly healthy? Like if you were, I'm sure it's different, but if you were comparing it to something like Seattle or something like that, how did it compare in your mind, in your experience?
No, it didn't compare as far as on a gig level, like being necessarily hired for a jazz gig like the way we used to do them. But the thing is, all the players down there, they can all play jazz because that's what they all studied in school. but they all can play
Yes.
commercial as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're able to turn that around, make stuff palatable for the audience. So what's going on? You know, they know what tunes to call and stuff like that. So, you know, when I got down there in the lounge gig, doing a lounge gig, I was blown away because they would be like 4 hours long, and I'm going 4 hours. Oh my gosh, I'm used to only two. You know, some were going 6. I remember when I first got there, this one big band used to start at 12 midnight, and they'd go till 5 in the morning. You know, at this restaurant, and so I mean, look, if you're gonna do that, you got to really want that outlet going. You know what I mean? Even if you're doing something else for a day gig, you know, you got to really want that sort of thing. But like I said, everybody down there can play jazz, and there are some monster players down there.
Sure.
That just, I mean, that'll blow your mind, you know. But they make the conscious decision to play what's relevant, what's appropriate for the situation. You know what I mean? So rarely is there a place where people just blow and stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a lot of more shows as opposed to, like, you know, jazz clubs like, you know, Tula's or something like that, which is no longer with us. But were there like jazz venues down there, like strictly jazz venues, or not so much?
Kind of was, but they come and go. You know what I mean? Because there's I don't think there's a lot of people that just want to sit and just necessarily listen to the swing. You know, you know, so most of the gigs that you would see like down on the strip and stuff like that is they're entertaining a room of people or their background music. You know what I mean? So it's not really necessarily them being featured right there. You know, but you know, if they're playing a lounge or something like that, what's going on is dance music, top 40. That's what's going on. You know what I mean? So that was good to grow from that. You know, doing some of that. I avoided that like the plague as long as I could until I couldn't anymore. But I'm glad I jumped in on some of that stuff and had people that asked me to play with it, because all it does is just expand your palette. You know, you may forget some other stuff, you know. So if you call the jazz tune right now, I'd be like, and I'd hear it after a time through. But man, that first chorus, you're gonna be like, who is this cat over here? But you know, I mean, but if you call, you may be right by Billy Joel right now. I got you. You know. Yeah. So it's just kind of how it is, you know, or Chris Stapleton's version of Tennessee Whiskey. You know what I mean? So it's you know, so. But yeah, so from there, from freelancing, I got a call one day from a cat who said, he's the bass player on Jersey Boys, which was the show that was there in town, one of the Broadway shows. And he says, yeah, man, I'm looking for some subs. And, you know, I want to give you a shot at this. So I said, oh, okay, well, yeah, definitely. So I went and watched the show. I studied my butt off, and I nailed it whenever I subbed for him, you know. And so... So then a couple months later, I got a message from the director of the Las Vegas show saying the national show needed a bass player because that bass player was leaving. So I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, let me think about it. And inside I'm going, yes, you know. So, you know, but you don't want to seem too eager because that's, you know, that's uncouth. So, so of course I said yes. And then I was on Jersey Boys national tour. And that Broadway is a different animal, you know, whereas as jazz players or R&B or funk players, you know, there's this box that you can kind of play around in, you know, your substitutions and whatnot, you know, and I'm going to use this Guagadugan 15 scale over this chord, you know. At Broadway, you got to play that book. And it is in a jacked up key. It's in G flat major. And then you have to sing behind that too, you know, while watching a monitor of the director, you know, giving you cues and stuff like that. I had to get in shape for that. I got my butt kicked for a while on that, you know, and I mean, those guys are serious. The conductors on those Broadway shows, all these cats have perfect pitch, and they can hear the E that is being sang by the sixth singer out front out of 12, and it's a little bit flat. So they'll cut everything off and correct that person. So, I mean, It was stressful a lot, and I went through a lot trying to get myself together for that show. But it was once again what a great experience, and I got to travel across the country. I got to go to Tokyo and just hang out for a while. And man, you know, if anybody, I wholeheartedly recommend getting your butt kicked, you know, and whatever you're doing, because it'll shape you up. You know what I mean? If you got that, you got that pride, you want to come back and you want to do a good job. So yeah, and so I did that for about a year, and then health problems kind of started to roost a little bit, you know, and that's how I ended up over here. But
California, you said the other day, it's Long Beach. You're in Long Beach, correct?
I'm in Long Beach now. Yeah, I came over here, moved in with Doris back in 2012, and we were in Huntington Beach, and I'm in Long Beach now. But I was figuring, you know, what I was going through, I'd only be gone from Vegas for a couple of months, and I'm still here. So, but that became a whole thing with me being in and out of the hospital a lot. And it was just a stressful time. I was very down a lot. From August of 12 to August of 13, I did not touch a bass. I didn't touch anything. I didn't listen to music. All I did was sit and watch TV because I was in and out of the hospital so much, you know what I mean? And so I just, you know, I thought I'd never play again. And so I was just kind of really, really down about that, you know? And from everything I've been through, you know, the thing I've noticed and I've learned is that, you know, where you're at is where you're at. And, but it's not always, you're not always going to be there. You know what I mean? There's something that will happen, good or bad, but something will happen, you know? So you're not always going to be there. So you can't be in that sort of mindset. You know what I mean? So, definitely. And I mean, even with Jersey Boys, because of health issues, I was having major health issues, that ultimately led to me having an amputation. I mean, I lost the Broadway job because of it. And I tell you, kind of toll that can take on you. You know what I mean? And just sitting in the house, I didn't want to listen to one lick of music. I didn't want to do anything. All I did was just watch HBO, you know, Showtime, Dexter, you know, just whatever came on, you know. But, you know, doing that and being in a wheelchair for 6 months, looking up at people and having people kind of go, oh, at you.
Yeah.
That kind of is like, oh man, come on, you know. And I know I'm going to get out of this thing, but you know, I was on state healthcare at the time. This is before I got married, so things move a little bit slower when you're on a state healthcare. Yeah. But when I eventually did get my prosthetic, David Perico, who's a trumpet player in Las Vegas, does a lot of work, great arranger, great band leader. He gave me a call just out of the blue. He said, man, you want to come over? I'm doing this project called Pop Strings. So, okay, yeah, I'll do it, you know, because I was ready to do anything at that point, you know. I've been in a wheelchair for 6 months. So I came on over to Vegas, and Dave has this thing where he's doing pop tunes, but they're arranged for 6 strings, 2 cellos, 2 viola, 2 violin, got a rhythm section, got a couple of singers, got a sax and a trumpet. And so just start banging out all these great tunes. We started playing at Caesar's Palace, you know, and then started doing corporate work and stuff all over town, and still got that kind of going on with the pandemic. You know, of course, things are kind of stopped right now, but Dave's always got his hands in something like yourself. You know what I mean? So getting back up is a huge thing. No matter what happens to you, you're going to get knocked down. There's going to be people that don't like you. They're not going to like the way you play. They won't even like the way you look. I remember I was up for a Boeing commercial up there with Steve Mostavoy and those guys up for Boeing up there in Seattle. And the producer was just staring at me while we're having this sort of talk through. I'm like, why is this guy staring at me? And he didn't like my look. He didn't like the wrestling ears. You know, he didn't like this fat chin, you know, this round head.
How could you not like the baby face?
That's what I'm saying. Now, it took me 13 years to marry Doris, but I wore her down. You know, I won this thing, you know? So, but the key thing is that, you know, I always wanted to pass along, even when I talk to her kids, sometimes I'm a little bit straightforward, a little bit harsh with them. But it's like, it's not always going to go the way you want it to go.
Right.
But and I tell them about this guy I know named Kareem, who's always got something going on. It always does. But you're going to have to get back up, and you're going to have to try again. So when you're playing along with some recording or something like that, or you're trying to learn something and you keep getting stuck, take a break for a little bit, but you got to come back to it. And you can't just feel that, like, you know what, I'm just going to walk away from this thing and I'm not going to do this thing. That's too easy. That's not what we do here. So, it's to keep going. And if you show that to other people and they know that you'll work in order to get their stuff straight, that you care that enough, that's how people keep calling you. That's how you become a part of their rotation, And so a good friend of mine, Asia Marie Wilson, who's a bass player, she plays with the Righteous Brothers. And she called me to sub for her for the month of October and do a couple of dates for her after that. And that was one of the most generous things. We've been friends for a long time, but she knew me and she knew that I would care enough to study and care about that material to step in to work with this rock and roll Hall of Famer. Mind you that, it's a person you hold up here. And it's like, well, you don't want to come in slacking. You never want to do that. You always want to present your best self. So, and that's even down. It's making sure you're not late. That's showing up with the right equipment. So if I'm playing an R&B gig that I'm standing behind somebody, I'm bringing my 5-string. I'm not bringing my 6-string with a bunch of stuff behind me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even the way you dress, and one band I work with, Pop 40s, the leader, Joe, is a great guy. He plays with Sheena Easton. He's always reminding me, man, you got to wear a tie and stuff like that, man, because I forget, but I understand. And, if you're on somebody else's project and they bring something up to you, you may think, oh, man, come on, that's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. Well, it matters to them.
Right.
And it is their project. And so if you want to be a sideman, if you want to be a hired gun, you got to bring it. You know what I mean? So figure out what it is you need to do and freaking do it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So sorry for the dissertation.
No, man. That's, I think, out of all the interviews we've done so far, like some of the stuff that you're talking about now is some of the best stuff on here that people need to know if they're thinking about being musicians, working musicians with other people, because it's not, me as a saxophonist, I do some sideman work, but it's mostly band leading stuff, but you don't really get into the sideman stuff, and that's super, super important and valuable knowledge from someone who's done it. And a lot of people, they don't know that, and they have to learn those lessons the hard way. So if they can do it without the turmoil, that's very helpful. So.
Yeah, I'm all about helping these younger people avoid the pitfalls and stuff I did. I'll tell you a funny story. When I was out with Jersey Boys, I made a serious error in judgment because I was being funny. It was St. Patrick's Day. We're in Fort Myers, Florida, and we had these green stick-on mustaches that we had up in our little box. We're in these suspended boxes above the stage. And I thought it'd be funny to take that down during the finale on stage.
Yeah.
And so the cast is laughing while we're doing the finale. Ha, ha, ha. Management, not so much, So I get hauled into the office and get a nice talking to. That wasn't pleasant. So that was an error in judgment. While it's funny now in hindsight, don't do stuff like that. Don't. That's
yeah. There's a time and a place. I seem to remember playing with you at a jazz festival down in North Texas, and the entire band opened up their book. I'm not gonna. The story's not really appropriate for Facebook, but everyone opened up their book and got talking. I don't know if you remember this or not. If anyone's watching that knows what I'm talking about, that was there. That was pretty hilarious and has gone down as history. It's immortal.
And immoral at the same time.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
We're getting close to the end, so if anybody is watching here that has any questions, I usually like to wrap up or have the last 15 minutes open for questions. So if anybody has any questions for Mark, please feel free just to chime in here. If not, we're just going to talk for another 5-10 minutes here and then close up. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them now, and we'll look for them. So Marcus, you're in obviously you're sheltering in place right now, but you're working on getting chops in shape still and working on different things. If people want to get in touch with you for lessons or gigs or recording or things like that, how can they reach you?
Well, I have my Facebook profile. Just Marcus Vann on there. I have a music channel that I just started called Big Smooth Music, which is going to be through Facebook. I have a YouTube channel that I'm starting to straighten out here. This is all in its infancy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for most part, people can contact me at mvann251@gmail.com. 251 being the most important transition there in jazz. You know what I mean?
That's
So
valuable. It's very valuable.
yes, yes.
And
So
you are teaching.
yeah.
Right? Like if someone wanted to study with you, either online or in person at some point, you are up for that? Yes? No? Man?
I'm up for it. I'm usually not a teacher, but I am up for it for sharing stuff with people. And for my journey right now, I'm studying with the bow. I never studied with the bow on upright bass. So that's what I'm doing now, taking myself through the Samando method. And from all the classical players that I've met across the country and stuff, and in Canada, I'm asking these people questions, and they are asking me questions about electric bass. And so everybody's been so helpful. Shout out to Sherry Lucetti. Shout out to Marjo Fournier up in Ottawa, Canada. These are master musicians that are taking time out of their day to just help me out. And so I'm willing to pass that on to anybody. You know what I mean? And it's just basically about paying this thing forward. So it's good to share whatever information you have. You know what I mean? So contact me. I'm starting to do a project here where I'm going to work with lots of singers and lots of instrumentalists. Going to do a series of videos called Have Bass Will Travel.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I will play with anybody. I don't care what instrument they play. I don't care how they sing, whatever. I'll play with anybody. We'll do a duet. We'll film it. We'll get good audio, and we'll post it someplace. It's about the music. It's because we love the music, trying to get the stuff out. Because it gets stuffed in there, and so instead of stuffing our faces with food, let's stuff our souls with music. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So, yeah.
Question here really quickly from Terry Cologne, Cliff Cologne's mom.
Yes.
Any Red Kelly stories?
Oh, Red Kelly.
For those that don't know, Red Kelly was a very famous jazz club in Tacoma that was run by Red Kelly, who was a bassist with Woody Herman, Red Norvo's trio, played all over the place. He had a wonderful jazz club here in Tacoma. So, any good stories from Red Kelly's club?
Well, I don't know if I have as much of a funny story, but as much as when we used to play there as young kids, I used to try to fancy myself like a John Patitucci, soloing up high and stuff. And I was doing this on 4-string. And so Red takes me aside one day after our gig, and he holds my hand, and he looks at me and he says, "You play great, but I think you're missing a little something." And that's all he said. But I instantly got what he said. Okay, this is a role about supporting the rest of the band members, and as well as using the range of the instrument. You know what I mean? And the reason why I was soloing up high is because I could keep everything in one place, and that's what I could remember, because I basically knew that top area and the bottom area. The in-between stuff was kind of no man's land when I was younger,
Right.
So hearing that from him, that was golden. And so from that point, I said, well, I got to work on making sure I know my alternate fingerings, all this other stuff, because while I haven't broken a string in 20 years, I did, not on my own fault, because of bad technique, I should say. I was playing on an old set of strings that snapped in the middle of a gig. And all of a sudden, I had to use alternate positions in the middle of the neck. If I had never cared about that stuff, I would have been screwed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these are the little things, And so once again, going back to being prepared, have tools in your backpack, have a flashlight, have extra batteries, all these other things that seem stupid. Throw them in the backpack, throw them in your car, stick them in the back, forget about it. Because I guarantee you one day it's going to confront you. You're going to need it and wish you had it.
Yep.
So.
Yep. That sounds like a page out of the Urban Prepper Cliff Cologne's book right there.
Oh, yeah. It's a bug out bag for musicians, for bass players. My BPBOB. Yeah. So.
Well, Marcus, I can't thank you enough. This has been, honestly, out of all the things we've done so far, no offense to the other people we've had on here, this has been my most enjoyable. And I think so much great information for people that are thinking about being musicians that they maybe have not thought about. Everyone gets so focused on learning how to play it, but there's the actual the things that you need in the trenches.
Oh yeah.
Before we close here, do you have any advice to people that are thinking about being musicians, aside from the stuff that you already did was great, but any pointers or things that you think are super important for people starting out as wanting to be musicians?
Okay. Well, once you get older, you'll find out. And I'm sorry to go back to a point. Your playing will be like the last 10-15% of everything. It's the other stuff. Who you know is really the most important thing. Because I'm here in LA, I'm playing a little bit with some great people, but I'm not going to be playing with like Thundercat and Kamasi Washington and all those guys. Those guys grew up when they were little kids. They know each other. You know what I mean? So I would say spend your time getting better, no matter what it is. And kids today, young people today, you have it, I'm not going to say easier, but you have so much just at your hands with YouTube. That stuff is right there. The internet is right there. We used to listen to freaking CDs and records and stuff like that and figure stuff out. You know what I mean? And just listening and trading stuff back and forth. But you guys have it. You can literally call it up on your computer in less than 5 seconds and you have something there. There's somebody training, showing you some kind of music tips on everything. So it's there for a reason. Dig into it, use it, and really soak it in. You know what I mean? And there's time for video games. There's time for other stuff like that. Take a break and do that. But if this is what you really want to do, fall in love with it. Fall in love with it. Understand, get it into your soul. Don't make it who you are, but make it a part of who you are. You know what I'm saying? And you know, so this is not a game. When you're making some serious money, or like if I'm doing a TV show, it's not a game, but it's still fun to me. And I treat it like a game. I treat it like a really good memory. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's what I can say. You know what I mean? And just bring your butt every time. You know, bring it. Bring it.
Right. Well, Marcus, thank you so much, and we love you dearly. I hope you know that, and we greatly miss you here in the Northwest. And I'm sure, should it ever be in the stars for you to move back this way, you'd be working all the time. Rest assured. So, yeah.
I'd love to.
Down there, but we miss you a lot, and hope you're doing well. And love to Doris, and thank you so much for doing this. And we'll see you later. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you guys. I appreciate each one of you. Thank you so much. Take care, Kareem.
You too. Bye.